Francesca Albanese, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Are you an anti-Semite?
I have to be honest, I will answer your question, fine, but I'm really bothered because with all what's happening and with all the effort that it takes to stay sane in the middle of this madness, as a human being, as a mother, as a lawyer, this is not the way I would like to start an interview with you, but I will. So first of all, yes, this is one of the accusations that has been leveled against me, against my mandate and my persona. But I would like to go with you through who is accusing me, what I'm accused of, and why. So, the State of Israel has accused this mandate of supporting terrorism, justifying terrorism, and crimes against Israelis, and anti-Semitism for decades. It started with Richard Falk, who's an American Jew himself, and he was accused to be a self-hating Jew. The cancel culture that is promoted by Israel, its sycophants and the squads of minions and barking dogs everywhere. There is a network that protects Israel. I'm assessing Israel's performance under international law, and I'm commenting and condemning Israeli record, human rights record. So I conclude what I conclude, and my conclusions wouldn't change if Israel was ruled by Buddhists, Muslim, Christians. It wouldn't change. And this is a deflection tactic that, in order to move the attention away from the violations that Israel commits. And by the way, many Jewish scholars, also Holocaust scholars, have stood in, and Jewish organizations have stood in my defense and pushed back on this. I'm done.
Let's get into the details of the criticism, Ms. Albanese. Last summer, you endorsed a tweet comparing Benjamin Netanyahu to Hitler. Why did you do that?
No. The tweet was about something else. The tweet
there was a picture of Hitler with a picture of Netanyahu, and you wrote under that tweet, "This is exactly what I was thinking."
I compared the cheering crowd that received Netanyahu. At the time, there were already an investigation for crimes, international crimes against him. The ICC prosecutor had requested an arrest warrant against him. He was received by a standing ovation by the US Congress.
Okay, so just to be clear, you didn't condone the comparison between Netanyahu and Hitler? Just the fact that he received a warm welcome in the US Congress?
No, because the tweet was about the cheering crowd. Craig Mohaiber, who's a former
I just want
UN
to be clear
official.
on this point.
Absolutely.
Okay, so...
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll lay that dead.
And I will soften the moment we get out of this, because I would really like to talk about the situation in the occupied Palestinian
Of course, we're getting to
territory.
that. We're coming to that. So your opponents also say that
Sorry, Ahmad, just to be clear,
Yeah.
Anti-Semitism is discrimination against the Jewish people as Jews. Even if I had compared Netanyahu, I've not compared Netanyahu to Hitler.
Okay.
But even if, I don't think that it's anti-Semitic. It might be inopportune, it might lack diplomacy. Take whatever you
Ms.
like.
Albanese, most of your opponents would say that's the very definition of anti-Semitism, that you draw comparisons between Nazi Germany and today's Israel.
And why is it, can you explain to me why is it anti-Semitic?
It's not me who's making the claim, but most of the Jewish interest groups say that's the definition of anti-Semitism. You do not draw parallels between the Nazis and today's Israeli leadership.
You know, you can make up your own definition. First of all, I didn't compare a Nazi leader with the genocidaire, with the architect of the genocide of the Palestinians in Gaza.
Okay, fine. Then we move on.
I didn't, and I didn't.
Okay.
And at the same time, There are people who have done it, including Jewish people, and I wouldn't go as far as saying that they are anti-Semitic, because have they discriminated against the Jewish people because they are Jews? No. Again, it refers to the performance of... I mean, we have to stop being so sensitive and considering everything that has to do with Israel untouchable. Come on.
Okay, let's move on to the other criticism. You also attacked for rarely criticizing or condemning atrocities committed by Palestinian militant groups like Hamas. Your response to that?
That's absolutely not true. I've condemned the crimes committed against Israeli civilians on October 7 immediately and unconditionally. I've written a book about that starts with a condemnation of Hamas crimes on October 7 against Israeli civilians. I've engaged with, including with the families of Israeli hostages and with others, and this is crystal clear.
Moving on to the contentious relationship between Israel and the UN as a whole.
As long as so many of you are Jew-hating, you don't really care that the Palestinians are not peace-loving. Shame on you.
According to Israel and its supporters, you personify everything that's wrong with the UN, that your organization is totally biased. Does the UN treat Israel unfairly?
Well, look, I think that I would agree that on occasions that UN displays some bias. For example, I think Israel claims to be singled out in the United Nations because of the many resolutions at the General Assembly level and Human Rights Council level. But this is a consequence and a dysfunction, if you want, of the lack of effectiveness of the Security Council when it comes to Palestine and Israel-Palestine. And so because the Security Council is often has often been paralyzed by the US veto, then you have these more democratic instances where there is no veto, like the Human Rights Council and the General Assembly.
Last year in the UN General Assembly,
to answer your question.
This context is important. Last year, the UN General Assembly, with 193 member states, condemned Israel 17 times, according to the pro-Israel monitoring group UN Watch. Countries like North Korea, Iran, Syria, Myanmar, Russia, and the US were slammed with one resolution each. 17 resolutions against Israel, 6 against the rest of the world.
Absolutely.
That doesn't sound fair.
Depends on what you mean fair. The overproduction of resolution is, and I have to say two things. The first is that overproduction of resolutions is due to the fact that nothing changes. Nothing changes on the ground. And frankly, I agree with you. I mean, to an extent, probably I would agree with Israel. What's the purpose of continuing to pass resolutions while nothing changes on the ground? There is never enforcement of international law when it comes to Israel. And again, I speak of Israel because this is the mandate that the United Nations have given me, and I'm trying to deliver it in the most impartial and objective way. It's a brutal, very difficult time.